One of the main things I drive home is don't talk about the services you sell, only talk about the outcomes you deliver. That was a huge thing out of the Challenger sale. Outcomes, outcomes, outcomes. Nobody cares about the services you sell. What are the outcomes you deliver? That's what you need to talk about. That's what you need to lead with. So if you want to gain trust, you have to arrive already with value in hand.
Welcome to the Learn It All podcast, the show for today's leaders who want to get ahead and stay ahead, because we believe great leaders aren't born or made, they're always in the making. I'm your host, Damon Lembi, two-time best-selling author and CEO of Learn It, a live learning platform that has helped upskill over 2 million people. Today's guest is my good buddy, Greg Bennett. He's a no-fluff sales veteran with decades of experience training teams, coaching leaders, and calling out the lies we love to tell ourselves when it comes to pipeline. I can't wait for Greg to break down his signature concept of the ugly pond, to share with you one of my favorite things, which is mini steps and how those drive results, why artificial intelligence is absolutely going to expose lazy salespeople, and why embracing no can actually be the best thing for your pipeline. So for years and years, you've talked about the ugly pond. So what is the ugly pond, and why are so many sellers drowning in it without even realizing it?
First of all, the problem is they're not drowning in it because they don't know, they're not going into it. And that's my thing. But the ugly pond, here's what, and this is embarrassing as hell, but it's a true story. It goes back to my high school days, back. And I remember my feeble, ridiculous attempts to ask young ladies out on dates.
I'm there with you on that.
And I would hear all sorts of wonderful excuses, right? I'm too busy just getting out of a relationship, going into one. I got to wash my hair. I got to wash my grandmother's hair. It was everything. And I wanted to just stop and say, hold on, time out. Let's just say what it is. You just don't find me the slightest bit attractive. And I let's just say it. It's, we all know it. Let's just do it. And to me, it was like, let's just hop in the ugly pond and let's just say the ugly thing. And, I would always think about, and this is a story I'd tell, is that I wanted to go up to girls in the summer when I was a kid, when I had my yearbook. I always wanted to go knock on their door and say, hey, you told me to stay in touch over the summer, and just to see the look on their face, it'd be like, what do you mean? Well, you wrote right here, and I quote, stay the way you are, you'll go far, and stay in touch this summer. So here I am, and of course your answer would be like, well, I meant to say, don't ever under any circumstance look me up, but why did we write that? Why did they do that? And it just kind of hit me that this whole deception is the exact same thing that goes on in sales, but because, and it all has to do with the sales psychology of the whole thing, of why it is that we are afraid to tell people the ugly truth. And there's a lot of different reasons for it. In the case of dating, it's like, well, no one wants to be mean. And in sales, it's like, no one wants to be mean, or maybe I don't want the fight, or I don't want the awkwardness. So it's easy just to say, why don't you stay in touch this summer and stay the way you are? And I'm interested. And so we do that all the time. And it's the dance, and sellers are hopeless romantics like I was in high school, but they don't realize they're in a dance with a deceptive ninja level black belt deceptive master known as the buyer role. And when you get in that with a buyer role, so to me, sales boils down to a dysfunctional dance between a deceptive master liar and a hopeless romantic. And that is a horrible dance. And what it ends up in is that sellers go out in the world looking to be loved, and they want to be accepted, and buyers pretend that they are, and they lead them on and string them on. And it just got to me to say, well, let's just throw them in the ugly pond. Go say what it is. And it worked like a charm, with the first time you do it, but it goes against almost everything people think they should do. And that is my whole thing, is the introduction of no as a possible, and no is a reality. That's the thing I want to get to people, is that no is a reality, that if as soon as you face it and you let the buyer know that I value it, we can save a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of effort. And we can either work together, or I can go find somebody that I would be a better fit for. So that's the ugly pond. And it's one of those things that I've been, training for 35 plus years, and people still 20 years later will just say to me, only thing they say to me is like, ugly pond guy. I was in an airport one day, the guy just, ugly pond. So I don't know if that's the thing I want hung around my neck, but it's what people remember. So I kind of and it really works on a lot of different levels. There's just certain times you better just throw all of your relationship into that ugly pond, because what can emerge, because the whole idea is to go in there to get reality, and once you get reality, you often can turn it around if you hear it. So that's the whole idea of the ugly pond.
And the other thing about the ugly pond too is you could either turn it around or you could pivot and go a different direction,
That's
as
the
a
key.
we'll talk about this more when it comes to mini steps, which is something that I'm a huge, huge fan of, is that it helps sales leaders and business owners too, because it helps you to see what's real and what's not real. And if you're not moving things down the field, you know, it's because people aren't being honest with themselves. And like you said, clients especially, they don't want to hurt your feelings. But for our listeners out there, I just want to let you know, Greg was like our first amazing sales leader, sales trainer. I don't know, what was this, like 30 years ago? I mean, what year
Oh
was
yeah, it
that?
was. It was. I was looking it up. It was just after. It was 2002, to give you an idea of how far that was back. Yeah, yeah,
And a
2002.
special shout out to our mutual good friend, Britt Miller, who introduced us. Uh, and I remember, Greg, I remember the first time that you came and did training with Learn It. And what I loved about it was it wasn't just some theoretical class. Do you remember this? Like, we weren't just sitting there learning things all day long. We had to come prepared with a binder full of people to call and prospect. And you would teach us something. We'd go outside and back to our desks when people still came to the office. We'd make those calls. We'd learn from that. We'd come back. You'd walk around the room, coach people. We had about 15 salespeople at the time, I believe, and there was just so much energy in the room. And I've been following your work for years. I mean, we were talking backstage. I mean, you're literally one of the first podcasts back in the day when you had a podcast that I'd ever listened to. That was probably 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I was. I'm an early adapter there. I probably should have stayed with it, but no, it was. I do remember those, and one of the elements I always, because to me, I always saw myself as the non-sales trainer. I was not like Tony Robbins, and I respect all those, super motivated. I wasn't like, Tom Hopkins, high pressure. I was just, and I learned it because I realized I wanted to be in sales, but I hated high pressure. I don't like the high pressure, like, hey, press hard, third copy's yours, and all that crazy stuff. I can't stand that. So I knew I had to find a model that I could sell and be successful. So I looked around, and I found psychiatry, and I love the way I looked at it. I love the way that psychiatrists are always looked at as the world's best listeners, and salespeople are always the worst. So I figured if I could study the mindset and the habit and the strategies of the psychiatrist and apply them to sales, that I may have something there, and I can have some fun because I'm an entertainer by and large, and if I can make people laugh, I sneak these into their ear on the side, and part of that was walking around, like we would, as part of the workshop, it'd be like, okay, no more ivory tower. Let's go get on the phones and start making some calls. And then I would go around, and I just loved to be in the trenches that way, where I could hear right there them applying a strategy, and and getting blown up or it working, and then they could immediately come back and get, oh my heavens, I just did that, and I got an appointment. To me, that's why I love about being in the training business, is that you impact people's lives on something like this, and it changes their whole trajectory of their life, and that feels good. So, but I love that being in the trenches and part of it, and the psychiatry of it has always been, I would say, probably the most popular part of all my training, is that people love that, and it really is. It's just basically a psychological dance, and the sooner people realize that it's not like any other human interaction, the better off you'll be. It's not like any other human interaction. It's a crazy dance that people do when the sales clock starts.
That dance is changing though.
Oh, it's changing dramatically. That's one of the reasons why, frankly, why I'm here, is because I basically retired. It was just like, I'm done. I'm not, and I don't do live workshops anymore. Not that it was just 35 years is a lot. And and but I found out that when I saw what AI was doing to the industry. First of all, I love AI. I live on it all day. I interact with it all day. I love it. I love it. I love it. At the same time, I realized this is a tremendous threat to salespeople. It's going to be a tremendous asset for good ones, and it's going to be a killer for average. And that's what got me to say, you know what, I got to stay in this game enough to share, because my strategies in my mind, um, I think are perfect to fight what AI is bringing. And so it's that because the things that it can't replace are still that ability to make a connection. You just have to do it faster. So it's still psychology. It's still a lot of the same nonsense going on of the ugly pond, but it just happens at warp speed. And where you used to have 2 weeks to be able to have 3 meetings, 2 coffees, a lunch with somebody, you may get a 5-minute interaction, because everything else you're communicating through a chat bot, right? And they're doing tons of gathering of information before they ever come across a human seller. And that seller had better be prepared, like boom. And so I thought, I got to stay in the game. If nothing else, I'm going to dump this out, put it out there, and hopefully people can find it, because I think it's still applicable.
So before we go into those human traits and the things we're going to talk about, let's talk a little bit about what AI is going to do to crush the lazy salespeople.
Studies have shown that salespeople that say that 70% of the items in their pipeline are real, reality shows it's 40. That gap, it's a tremendous risk to everybody, to the company, to do resource planning. How can you do that with a 40% dropout of what this seller? And it's because we've been doing it in this archaic way of estimating what is in a sales pipeline. I created this audiobook a couple years back called Make More Donuts, about this fictitious donut making factory in Steamboat Springs, Colorado. And the whole idea is they were making donuts in these big metal silos. And this consultant shows up from overseas. His name is Mr. Fran Chise. And Mr. Fran Chise shows up, and he comes through, and he sees the number one problem with these donut makers is that they're working in metal silos, and he introduces glass silos, and it blows everybody's mind. And when you think of it that way, what happens is if you're thinking old school and you're dumping stuff in, and sellers are being deceptive, by the time that thing flushes out and it's only 40%, your business is dead. You as a seller are dead. And so, I think a lot of it is where the threat is going to be. It's going to flush out where you've got BS in this pipeline, because it'll test it, right? A smart CRM will look at it and say, based on what you put in here, this is not 70%. This is 10. And it's going. So if you're getting by BSing, you're going to be out, because you can't live with a dead pipeline. You just can't. You've got to have stuff that's in there that's pressure tested and real, and AI will do that. Another thing is that, buyers can gain as much information about you as you can about them before you ever arrive. So you don't get a chance to make your case. AI goes and finds it all out. AI will train those buyers how to answer objections smarter, how to avoid, AI is going to be working for them as well. So when you show up and you start a sales conversation with, so Damon, well, what do you guys do? And I have still people that do that, show up in my office and ask me, so what do you do? I'm like, what do I do? Are you serious? One of the things I love about the Challenger sale there, that thing in there about, you've got to make sales meetings so effective that people would pay for them. And a buyer's not going to pay for you to show up. And so Damon, what do you guys do? Really? What do I do? I don't have time for that. You should know what I do. You should know everything about me, and you should come loaded with issues that I'm probably facing. AI is going to make it impossible for you to survive if you're an average seller. Absolutely impossible. You won't get to people. You won't wow people. You won't excite them, and you're not going to get anywhere. And so that is the biggest threat. They are as educated or more educated, and they can get that way before you're disqualified before you ever even get in the race. And I think unless you get that, not going to make it.
One little tip I say is you should never ask a question that you could either find through using ChatGPT or Google or whatever.
Absolutely.
You should not ever do that, because you're wasting the buyer's time and you're coming across as lazy again. But let's just jump into the three core human or the main things that you're going to be introducing or repurposing in your on-demand course. And this is so exciting for me because, I mean, we're going back through this, 20 years ago, and a lot of these, including my favorite, which is the second one, the mini steps. We'll get to that first, second. But let's just start off with the trust fast.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the main thing is you've got to lead immediately with a mindset and an attitude that the client is first. Their success is first. And this is age-old stuff. What Dale Carnegie said, no one cares about how much you know until they know how much you care. I mean, this is like age-old stuff, but it's really true now. Clients have to know if a seller approaches me, he or she has my best intent in mind. And I will sense that immediately by how you show up at that meeting. If you're bringing value to that meeting, that tells me that you're putting me first. If you show up and you're wasting my time, you're putting you first. I have no time for you. So I think that and staying outcome focused. One of the main things I drive home is don't talk about the services you sell, only talk about the outcomes you deliver. That was a huge thing out of the Challenger sale. Outcomes, outcomes, outcomes. Nobody cares about the services you sell. What are the outcomes you deliver? That's what you need to talk about. That's what you need to lead with. So if you want to gain trust, you have to arrive already with value in hand. Why should I spend 5 minutes with you? I need to know that you have my best interests in mind and that you're bringing me something I don't know that could have a dramatic impact on the outcome you're about to deliver for me. And you can deliver that outcome.
Can you give an example of what that looks like? Not being feature and benefits based, but more outcome driven.
Yeah. So let's say that I see it particularly in elevator speeches. And I tell people you can start right here. When they develop an elevator speech, usually say, well, I'm Greg, I'm with Learn It. What do you guys do? And I give the spiel about who we are and what we do, the service.
How many awards we have.
Right?
Yeah.
Versus say, here's how you can change it right here. Well, I'm with Learn It. I could talk about all day about what we do, but let me share with you 3 things that clients tell us. And you make your elevator speech about what clients tell you, and it is immediately more engaging. Number 1. Number 2 is that it has a much greater trust factor because they don't believe anything that comes out of your mouth because you're in the seller role. Right. And so switch all of just be talking about the outcomes that you create. You're the seller of outcomes. You're not the seller of services. So you need to be able to talk about outcomes. And then you need to basically find out, is this an outcome that you need to get to? Or you could share with them and say, based on what I know about you, this is an outcome you should be looking at, or you're not going to be around much longer, Mr. Client. So arriving with outcomes, knowing the outcomes, building it into everything, another example, put it in your proposals, right? Put outcomes in the proposals. Here's a client that said this and they said this, and put everything through the voice of the client and somebody just like them, because they have much more weight than you do. They just do. And people will not allow sellers to influence them. That's the old psychology thing that's still around, is that I know going into this engagement, one thing I know when I step in that buyer role, I don't want the seller to persuade me, so I'm not going to allow it. Yeah. So let me tell you real quick where this is, the old cartoon about the sheepdog and the coyote, Sam and Ed. Remember years ago? I'm older than you, but I remember they lived across the street from each other, right? And they used to drive to work together, and then they would hit the clock and they would step into these roles, right? And the sheepdog is out there protecting the sheep, and this coyote is going at them all day, and they would just beat the hell out of each other all day. Brutal, right? And then at the end of the day, that clock, would ring, and they'd check out and they'd drive home together and be like, see you tomorrow, Sam, see you tomorrow. And that to me is when that sales clock starts, you are in the seller role. I don't care whether you want to be or not. You are. It's like putting a big cloak on, and you can go in, but make no mistake, things happen when you're in that role. Same with the buyer role. In the buyer role, they have absolute carte blanche ability to lie, and don't look at it as lying. That is deadly. So they don't trust anything you say, and they discount all of it. So when you are going to make a media splash, I'd be talking about, here's what people just like you were saying about us. Here's what they like. Anytime I mention a feature, I'll tell you why that should impact you. We work with people just like you who have that specific issue, and here's the outcomes we've been able to drive for them through this. That's the only way they're going to listen to you. That's why we are so influenced by, the likes we get and the testimonials and all the things that they're much more influential than we are as a seller.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always like to say, what I've found with working with other organizations like you is this, and also make sure that it's tied to the vertical, because if I'm speaking to somebody in healthcare, they don't really care what's going on in retail. They want something that's applicable to them. So I think that that's really important.
And that's a great one on prospecting. When you're calling, you should be as specific as you can. If I were calling Learn It as the president of Learn It, I'd say, I would like to talk to you. I specialize in working with learning organizations who are struggling with growth, particularly, and that makes it worth you saying, well, I'll carve out 20 minutes for that. But if I'm an insurance guy and I just out of the blue say, hey, let's talk insurance. No time, man. You got to make it specific for me, or I'm not going to carve out 20 minutes to listen to you. And I'm still shocked how many sellers just don't get that when they approach. And I'm just like, you're not even thinking of me. So I can tell you're not after my best interests. And I can tell that immediately. It's the way psychiatrists judge that the first two things we judge about another human, particularly in business, is what is their intention and are they capable? It's the first thing we think about. When I meet somebody, it's like, what is their intention for me? What do they want from me? Do they want anything from me? And if I do trust them, are they good at what they do? Because I just trusted them. And those two things have to happen if you want to gain trust.
Let's go with message number 2, my favorite.
Okay, actions, many steps. Here's what I think. I speak in analogies, but I think of this has been a gigantic gap in the area of sales for as long as I've been around, and I still can't figure it out. If you think about the typical sales process, say I am going to buy a luxury yacht. I've never purchased one. I'm certainly not on their target list, but if I were going to go do that, I have no idea what that sales process looks like. None. So if I walked into a room and a seller would say, so how can I help you? What can I help you with? Looking for a yacht. Well, what kind of yacht you look? I don't know. How do I even look for one? Yeah. Well, when you get ready, we got a lot of them. We'll go take a look at it. So there's no steps. There's no process, right? Now imagine if you had a multi-step process and I arrived there and the seller says, Greg, first time looking at a yacht. Is that what you said? Yes. Okay. Well, we have a kind of a 10-step process to help. And he lays a process out that he shows me that it starts with really small steps that educate me, that enlighten me, that help me. And then it goes all the way through. As we get closer, we start to have more defined steps where you're on the hook for things, right? This is where we'd have to put the order in the factory. This is when we would get it on the water, but it's all laid out for me. People don't do that in sales. It's totally invisible. So they have one big step and it's a big one. That's why that has been so pressure packed. If I were selling anything, and I've helped hundreds of companies do this, it can be a 3-step process. It could be a 10-step process, but the whole way you do it is you just on a table, lay it out with 3x5 cards or sticky notes and just, what are our steps in the process that go from the very beginning, and the early stuff I like are like low committal, like let's do a whiteboarding session. Let's have a tour of the factory. These are little things to say when you're in the early stages and they say, yeah, I think I like you, check back. Well, hey, let's at least do this. Right. And so I'll throw a dart into the future and put a date down there. And they'll say, well, let's say if you and I are going to work together, we'd want to have something fourth quarter. Right. So instead of just circling back with the same BS and you're not getting anywhere, I'd say, let's do this. Pick a date that we would want to tentatively start. Oh, December 1st. Okay. So let's start working backwards. And here we are, December 1st. What we need to do next week is this. See, the problem is we don't make the steps visible. And with no visibility, clients have no trust because I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do. Is it logical for me to just take a down payment on a yacht? I have no freaking idea. It would be logical for me to take take a class. Which yacht is the right yacht for you? I sign up for that. So as soon as I start signing up for this dude's process, I'm off the market, so to speak, for a while, because now at least he's locked in. And that seller, here's the next magical thing about him. Instead of salespeople wildly guessing where opportunities are in the pipeline, because that seller at some point is going to tell his boss, did you talk to Bennett? Yeah, he's kind of clueless, but I'm putting him at 80%. Based on what? Based on what? Well, he's really interested. Well, I'm interested in playing for the QB for the Broncos this season. I'm really interested in that. I've no shot at it, but So we say these things like 70% based on what? Guys seem really pumped. Okay. But you can now start to call them things. Okay, did he get into the class? Yes. Let's call that 20%. Okay, did we put the tentative date boat on water? We call it whatever. Yes. Okay, that's 40%. We don't call anything 80%. Here's who calls what the percentage is: the prospect, not the seller. You cannot have sellers forecasting what's in your pipeline because they are sellers. They sell themselves and then they start selling you, and you start buying it, then you start working it right up the food chain. So it all starts with many steps. You create the many steps and then you close on them. So as a manager, you could be talking to somebody and say, hey, young seller, what did they say? Well, a guy said he's super interested. Okay, great. Did you go ahead and do this step? Ah, no. Okay. Call him back and do that step. Now, if he doesn't do that step, that tells you some things. He is not interested, quote. Or if he does, you start to bring it. So the mini steps are really magical. They allow people to close because you need to break it down into something that you can tangibly do. And they are. And again, with some of the consulting firms I work with, being them, I had one that had a 37 step mini step in there. And they were stuff like, when I got the MSA, we called that 17%. I'd be like, okay, well, I don't know if you'd be that specific, and then I have others that are just like 4 steps, right? Okay, whiteboarding session, tentative hold on inventory, and things that are great for mini steps are like tentative hold. When would you want to start? Oh, sometime in August. Great, pick a week. No, let's say second week of August. Jot it down. Why? Because we do a first come, first serve. Let's stack them up. Because if people won't take action steps, they're starting to tell you, blind seller, wake up. That's not your girlfriend. They're trying to tell you through their action or non-action, and you can clear away a lot of stuff. So, and here's another thing. This is a really important one. Make steps after the sale. Another huge mistake I found with sellers is that all they give a crap about is before the sale. That's where all their effort is. That's where all the flowers and candies and promises of trips overseas until you get what you want, not so much after. Car dealers are the most notorious. Like you go in there, everyone's like, hey, Damon, you're a big guy. You work out? Yeah, you got kids? How about a hot dog? Junior, balloons, huh? It's just smarmy and disgusting, right? And they do it. And then after you bring the car in and service, it's like, oh, yeah, it's over there. There's no hot dogs or balloon in the service area. None, right? I found this, I do a lot of work with pro sports teams over the years. I ended up in that niche, by the way. And I ended up working with about 200 professional sports teams. And they would sell these season tickets, right? And club suites and all that. They'd sell them. And here's their post-buy process. Here's your season ticket pack. I hope we're good this year, and then a guy owns a bunch of suite nights at the 49ers or whatever, right? No help, no guidance, nothing. And so I worked with Pat Bowlen, the late Pat Bowlen with the Broncos back in the day. He would have me talk to all the suite holders after, because I told him, Pat, once we sell these things, they have no freaking idea what to do with them. Let's create a suite maximization program. So one of the things I encourage people to do is make a maximization program, brand it, call it that, and make steps. So when the guy's nervous, you say, hey, I understand we're a little nervous. We're really stretching your boundaries. That's one of the reasons why we have a maximization program. And it's just as formalized as my pre-sale. Our after sale sucks. We're just sort of like, hey, promise we'll be there. You need anything, we're there. And everyone knows, I don't know if I trust that much, But the aftercare, when you say, let's have a 7-day check-in, let's have a 30-day, let's have a 60-day, that really helps. And you lay it all out for them as part of the mini steps. So they're magical. You just got to take the time to do it.
There's so many things I want to say about that, but starting at the end there, Courtney Ritchie on my team, who you probably remember because she was around when you were working with us, when in the pre-sale process, we bring in Courtney, who's head of our learning LX team, our learning experience team, and she outlines the post-buy process of all the mini steps along the way, and that builds so much more trust with the customers, because they're like, okay, I'm not on my own with this. I have somebody that's going to support me and maybe take some of that work back for me, which is so important. Back in the day, we'd have 2 mini step meetings a day, 7:30 in the morning and 5 o'clock at night. And when everybody would come to the office, and Britt Miller, we talked about, would run it. and everybody was required to come in and share their 5 mini steps for the day, because it helped the sales team start thinking about what they were gonna do and
Yes.
accomplish the day. Because 'cause you're moving the ball. For a sports analogy, you don't just throw touchdowns, you move the ball down the field, and you get little wins. Mini steps are little wins, and for the
Oh,
listeners.
yeah.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say the clouds open up as you say that.
Yeah,
That's it. That's it. That's
that's it.
brilliant.
And the other thing that I wanna, as far as what I look at mini steps are, they require the customer to do something back. I can't just be, "Hey, I'm gonna send you a contract." To me, that's not a mini step. If they review the contract then with you, that's a mini step. So, it was just, over the years, I've been able to see to really flush out good salespeople versus poor salespeople and opportunities that we're gonna close or not close just based on the number of mini steps that they've actually been able to succeed with. I will also say, especially when you have new salespeople on your team
Oh, yeah.
and maybe they don't have any deals closed, but they are moving the ball down the field. Greg, it gives them so much more confidence because they're getting things done. They're getting little wins. They're getting milestones along the way of it. So, um, I recommend for everybody to check out your course, especially this section, because mini steps are just freaking magical. I mean, I think that they're something that should be implemented because there's so much value for both the customer, because you're doing right by the customer, but you're also, um, from a sales rep and sales manager perspective, there's so much value in there.
Yeah, and in that book, Make More Donuts, the glass silos showed them. Here's a really big one too, and you kind of touched on what you do there, but it allows the manager to figure out where to hop in and help. Because I can see now, instead of just going and saying anything I can do, and the seller's like, no, I think I got it. How? Because he seems super pumped. I don't know how to help you. What have we done to this point? Plus, what you don't want are sellers spin because they're good at it. And they start assuming. You can always tell, like, what makes you think? Well, I'm assuming because he haven't heard anything else. Okay, but what has he done? Nothing. But he's there's nothing that I can sink my teeth in to go help you with to say, oh, I see the clog there. It's right here. Let me hop in and help you. If you don't have visibility, you're dead. And that's going to be particularly true when you've got limited, when pipelines are going to be essential that we close what's there. And you hit the point earlier is that to make sure we don't put stuff in there and then waste time, because here's another thing that happens. People like to fill their pipeline with stuff so I don't have to prospect. Because
Right.
everybody has call reluctance, no matter they try to deny it. And if you wait until your pipeline is dead to start prospecting,
You're done. You're
you're
done.
done because you suck at it. It's like working out once a month. You're going to work out once a month. You're going to be horrible at it. You have no, and you end up in this cycle. And if managers aren't watching that,
Mhm.
next thing you know, because guys, they're on fire when they're coming in, pipeline's full, rocking and rolling. All of a sudden, now full of crap, but it starts to flush out. Meanwhile, now when it is dead, you have no time to start planting and harvesting and weeding and feeding. By the time there's no time, so it's going to be, it's just going to, it's visibility is going to be key when you're dealing in slivers of opportunities to try closing people,
Yeah,
it's,
and we're gonna take it to the ugly pond, but I also wanna stay there for a second. One of the biggest mistakes I see still all the time with some of the people I coach or I work with is that these deals and the opportunity, these opportunities in the pipeline that are just wishful thinking, right? And you've held on for way too long. You're putting all your eggs in one basket. You're not prospecting. You know, and if you're a sales leader and you're not really engaged, maybe you don't know. But if you ask them, what are some of the mini steps? What are the things you've done? And they can't answer any of those questions. Then the next step is really right, Greg. You take them to like, let's get this to a no because let's clean this out, regardless if the sales rep likes it or not.
yeah, yeah. Well, see, that's the thing, and it kind of leads into the next main area that I teach. And I think one of the first to really embrace no. And my new mini course is called The Power of No. And it's next to the ugly pond. It's the same thing, but it's the thing that people remember next. It's just like, take them to no, take them to no. And I got that. But now here's the thing. A lot of people have mentioned that it could be yes or no. But I think I'm the only one that is drilled to this level of taking somebody that's maybe and shoving them into no. I just take them there. I don't ask, are you there? You are there. Because here's the thing I try to get across to young sellers. There is no fence to sit on. There is no maybe. Clients are either in yes or no. That's it. And it's only no for now, but it's like another analogy, driving across Kansas till I get to Colorado, right? I'm in central from what? Indiana all the way over. And there's this sliver into Colorado, Kansas, right before you hit Colorado. And it goes central, mountain, 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 mountain. There's never a time I'm traveling between time zones, ever. I'm closer, but you have to get people to see that there's only yes or no, young seller. And it's so much healthier if they look at their pipeline and they would say stuff like, so what's going on with Johnson over there? Instead of saying, and then the spin starts. Well, last I talked to them, they're super excited. All they're waiting for is, to get blessings from a priest. And then whatever they're looking for, they're getting the finance. They got to talk to their sister versus saying, well, he's at a no for now. Because when you get no, you get reasons. When you get maybe, you get nothing.
Give us an example of helping that will help a seller take somebody to know. How that interaction works with a customer.
Sure. Okay. So the way I started is I like a 0 to 10 flush, right? Well, first of all, I set an agenda before the call. This is a unique thing. Hey, Damon, before we ever start, you and I are sitting down. Hey, Damon, appreciate the time. What we normally do on these first calls, I'd like to do 3 things. I'd like to cover what I've discovered about you, did a pretty good amount of research, and particularly how you guys are doing this, and that. Based on that, I'd like to share with you a little bit about what we do at Learn It and some of the outcomes we're able to drive. And then at the end of today, we need to do one of 2 things. Either, yes, we both like it, let's take a next step, whatever that is, or no, we don't like it, let's not take a next step, but I'll be asking you. So I establish up front that I'm going to be closing you but to me, closing is not just yes, it's closure, yes or no. I'm announcing to you, I'm going to ask for that at the end. I'm just telling you up front, but I mention no early, and it sends a signal to them that this guy's different. He's super confident. He's not panicked. He's not desperate because he mentioned no. Now they're left with, at the end, I'm going to ask you for reality, even if the reality is ugly, right? So we get to the end, we've gone through, and we at that point, and here's how I would close. I'd say, so, Damon, based on everything we've seen in this first meeting, I feel we've got the potential for a great partnership together, but that's just me, right? I see it all the time. I know the type of work we do. That's just me. Based on everything we see, do you see we have the means for a great partnership? And now, just because I ask them not to, they will still try to go maybe, right? So I like to 0 to 10 and say, well, let me ask you just out of curiosity, 0 to 10. 0, we're not going to do this. 10, we are. Their number one answer, they love 7.
Yeah.
John Elway's number. John Elway. The deity of Denver. They love 7, because it's far enough away, but they love to be positive because I don't want to get in a heated exchange with a seller. So I just go for, so there's 70% you like, 30% you're not comfortable with. This is the shift. Let's talk about what you don't like. In my mind, it's far more than, they're really about a 4, but they're being 7 to be nice. Let's talk about what you don't like. Now, so then they start talking, and then I get more so. And I'll say, yeah, I know that's an issue, but my sense tells me that even if we had that, you're not ready to go with us. And I push hard and I go into no. And then here's how I bring it and say, here's where I think you are, Damon. I think you like a lot about what we're doing. I do. I think we've got, we're in sync on many different things. I also think there's a couple of things that are really standing in your way to being excited about it. And I'll mention something that I know they've mentioned, right? One of the things you mentioned is we didn't have the depth of experience. And I think that is really a hang up. And I think unless that's solved, we're not going to go anywhere. Now, this is what makes this style so weird. When I hopping in the ugly pond is I go tell them what the ugly thing is. And I will say what I know they can't say. Here's the thing. It's not that you're busy all the time. You just don't find me the slightest bit attractive. I'm saying to the buyer, there's something here, and I think it's this. And I lay these things out. I always love ROI. I think the big one is you're afraid of not getting the ROI. And then they'll break and they'll go, yeah, and now it starts to, once you go ugly and once you send the signal that I want to talk about the truth, not pretend land, this is the same guy who was just telling me he's at 7. The no he had is huge. And I need to get in and we need to wrestle with it because until we get there, we're not going in. And I'm telling the client this until we solve that, we're not moving forward, right? You're right. Now, let me ask you this. Let's say we solve that issue. Where are we? And this is where I start to bounce between. Now, what I'm trying to tell sellers is that the Death Valley of sales is one of my concepts where I've got yes and no on the side. In the middle is neutral. I just try to flatten that. It's only yes or no, and I don't mind going in reverse because I'm rocking the car out of the snow. I can get momentum. That's why I like going to no, is I can get them there. Then they start listing reasons. Now, you don't have to solve all the reasons, but there's some that are huge. We just never talk about them. Here's who they talk to them about. When you leave, you're driving home. I'm ready to go tell Damon about my sales call. And I'm thinking, man, that went great. I think they're going to actually do something. Now, if I had a camera in that guy's office, he's like, did you talk to the guy from Learn It? Yeah, it must be on crack or something. He's like, it was outrageous. Well, what'd you tell him? I told him to take a look at it. I tell him, here's the worst. I tell him to do a proposal. Two different people, right? It's just different realities. I'd rather just go there. And here's the thing. When I go to no, they don't get mad at me. Where they get mad is if I try pushing them to yes when they're not there. I get them. I'm trying to cheer me up. I'm like, no, you're at no, at least for now. Until we solve this issue, we're not good. Now, when I say that, I know that there's salespeople all over the world and managers would be like, I would never say that. And they would never mention no. And that's why I'm different. I'm like, I don't mind it because I can recover from no because I get reasons. And here's the weird part. They trust me because I've had people that give me deals that say, the reason we went with you, you're the only one that said when you started that we don't have to be a fit for everybody. See, because sellers leave this feeling like we're going to end this call and there's nothing you could tell me that I can't fight. Well, what the hell am I going to tell you at the end if I don't like you? I'm not going to do that. I'll just make up other people. And they're good at it, man. I like you, Greg. I just need to talk to my partner. He's out of town. They're good at it. So I'll give you another quick strategy. I like that. No, when somebody gives me an event that has to happen or a thing that has to happen, I will ask them, well, let's fast forward there. Let's say you have that conversation with your partner and he says, yes, we're good to go. Where would you be? And then you listen to them very carefully. Because if they say, well, I'm good to go. Okay, then I'll try to do a mini step right there. I'll say, great. Then what we need to do, if we're going to have a shot at doing this in September, we need to at least plan the tentative dates. Now, if he won't do those mini steps with me, what's he trying to tell me? He's trying to tell me, A, he doesn't want to do it, or B, he's not going to go to battle for me. But if he does want that, he's going to use my mini step to go to battle. Because now he's going to go to his partner and say, hey, I'm thinking I really want to use Learn It. I know it's a little bit more than we were thinking, but they've got this incredible program. And the key is we've got us locked in for September, which is apparently very booked, right? It's another secret thing about mini steps is that middle range buyers need them to go to convince somebody else, but they won't give them to you if they're not bought in. So all the revolving around no and mini steps are all tied together. And that is getting people to make decisions. And if we could do anything, but just wipe out maybe. It doesn't even exist. Don't allow it to exist. When next time a seller says, well, he's a maybe, it doesn't exist. Say he's a no for now. Why? Because he's not a yes. So he's no for now. He could be yes in 10 minutes, but he's a no for now. Let's not fool ourselves. So I love that idea of the mini step. You didn't get the mini step today. What did that tell you? And then the sellers are starting to wake up. Well, maybe he's not as interested as I thought. Bingo, right there. Yeah, that's okay. And you need to find that. Why? So now you know why. Why? What's missing? What didn't he have? What do I need to find? Either you can get it or you can't. Because if it's no, then it's like, good. Now we can go out and we have a pipeline flush with real prospects and not the crap. And it really is a management issue, that to deal with. They need to institute it. They need to apply it. And they need to just train their sellers on it and not allow some of them to wing it. Because those days are gone.
I think it is a management issue, and I think it's one of those things where you have to be consistent with it too, because a lot of sellers, and we talked about this, they're hopelessly positive in their own mind, and sometimes very naive in wanting to hold on to things that don't exist. And as a manager, you got to get out of your own comfort zone and push them on that, right? Because you're helping them. Yeah, I mean, because if you're protecting your comfort zone with your pipeline because you got to report into the CRO or the president, Well, at the end of the day, it's not going to work out for you because it's a fake pipeline, so you got to get in that mindset and then train your sellers to look at it that way too. Because Greg, it is okay because it's a learning lesson too. Like, what can I do differently, or what do I need to go out and find and refill my pipeline? Because at the end of the day, if you have a bunch of garbage in your pipeline, you'll ultimately lose your job and your company could be in jeopardy.
Absolutely, and that's the level of management, level of ownership managers have to have. They have to say, her pipeline is my pipeline.
Uh-huh.
Her day is my day. His day is my day. My day is only going to be as good as his day and her day. That's it. And so I better know something other than, how's it going? Pretty good. How's it looking? They're pretty said he's still interested. Do you have to have more? Because, in that glass silo, the last thing the manager learns from the consultant is that you need to take ownership of, now that you have visibility, you need to take ownership of working with them and train them. It doesn't mean they have to be robots, but you still go to each and say, what is your recipe that you put on the top for you? Because your pipeline needs to look like this, Mr. Hotshot. And this needs new people. You don't have an option. Your pipeline looks like this. This is what a good day looks like. The number one thing that salespeople report that they wish their managers did more is give them some sort of visibility into what a good job is. This is a huge gap. Most sellers don't know what a good week is. They don't. Now experienced ones do, but new ones, I start a job and here's what they do. Good luck, rock and roll, man. No scripts, no guidance, no help, no, here's what you're facing. I don't know what a good day is. If you say a good day is you're getting into 3 situations where you're asking for a mini step. Now I can recognize a good day. And so what does that mean? How do you get them into that? Then you start to train. But if it's amazing. It's still that wild west of like, hope we find some rock stars and then you bring on new people and you just flush them through because you don't know what the hell they're doing. You have no visibility. So yeah, all ties
I
in.
like I like that the sales reps wanna know what a good day looks like, you know what I mean? Because it kinda sets some goals or some transparency for them, what success looks like, especially when they first come on board, because you're not gonna go to 0 to 100 and hit your long-term quota, so it gives you something to strive for and sets examples.
Oh, exactly. It goes to that next point also when they come back in and they want to please you. And so they're like, well, I went out and had a meeting with so and so, and you want to say that's not even a prospect. Well, that's not her fault. Why is she even pursuing him? There was no plan, no strategy, nothing, where they don't know what a good week is. If you guide that, and you start, and I always love and one thing I've always bumped against is this thought of we can't micromanage them. I'm like, dude, do you realize in professional sports, who are the most experienced, longest athletes on the planet, been doing it since they're 7. When you're on a professional team, every practice is graded. So micromanagement goes the higher your profession. They don't let them go and say, hey, we'll see you guys on Sunday. If it's a 12-year pro in the NFL, they're grading your practices. And now they put a guard to do it for a reason, but everybody knows the reason. It's quality control, pursuit of excellence. It isn't because they get excited looking at Bob's practice report. It's to help. That's it. It's a help. The way you help people is you give them guidance and so they can't fail. That's the key. It's fail proof. If the failure's on you as a manager, if you allow them to do whatever they want. It's like opening a restaurant and hope you have great chefs versus giving them all great recipes. And then even the average chefs can cook good meals. But if you bring them in and say, rock and roll, then you are the one who knows what they're going to turn out. And that's exactly what happens. So
Another thing that athletes do, professional athletes do, is every spring training or preseason, they show up and they go through the fundamentals over and over
yes,
and over again.
yeah,
And that is so important,
they don't
I
do
believe.
they don't do trick plays.
Yeah,
They don't
yeah.
do right. They don't do trick. They're like, wait a minute, I'm Peyton Manning coming to year 20. Yeah, you're doing it down and out, down and out, down and out, down and out. They're not like, hey, we have 5 new trick play, and that's what people want. Like, why are we doing these? What are we doing? Why do we have to role play? Because that's the day to day, man.
Yep.
You know.
That's so important. Hey, we're gonna wrap up now, but we've known each other for a long time, and I want you to just share the story about the first time you met my dad.
Oh my gosh. Walt, right? Did he go by Walter or Walt?
Walt. It went by Walt. And by the way, I don't even think I told you this. We haven't talked in 20 years, but my son is named Wally, named after my dad,
Oh my
who's
gosh.
not,
And
passed away.
I didn't get I've never had the chance to meet him up to this point because he was in and out of the office when I was there. And
Yeah.
I'd always heard stories. You're talking about him all the time. It's like legendary. He's an awesome dude. And so finally, I'm like, okay, this is back in both of our heavier drinking days. Well, we would go out after, right? After training all day, go have a couple
So
pops,
much fun.
right?
More than a
And
couple. More than
yeah,
a couple.
more than we should. So when we were going to go out, it was like, and it was San Francisco, is the coolest city, right? And we were going to go out, and Walt's going to join us. I'm like, awesome. I didn't. I think I actually met your grandfather once when he came in, and he blew me away also because he was still coming to the office at what 90 or something.
He came to the office till he was 100.
I know he just blew me away. I'm like, okay, so we're meeting Walt, and you're telling me about which bar we're getting. I don't know the name of the bar we're going to go to.
Mason Trawl.
Okay. So it's what, like 4 or something? We're at the end of the workday, training's done. Walt's coming and he wants to hear about what are these shenanigans we're up to, you know. So we sit down there and you and I are, and we're all, and there's just us three and the bartender, and in walks Brian Seltzer. Is that his name?
That's his name. Brian Setzer.
Yeah. Of the
Stray Cats.
Right. And
Lead
they were
singer of the
big.
Stray Cats.
They were back in those days, right? And he has very distinctive look, right? And he comes rolling in with this woman, and we're all like, is that who I think it is? And like, yeah.
Two tables down.
So
Nobody
like,
else in the restaurant.
so we can hear everything, and we're all like, okay, well, hey, I think maybe we did a nod, like Stray Cat strut or something. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Right. And all of a sudden, he slides across the table what turns out to be a wedding, engagement ring, and we're all like,
huh?
I remember like, are we watching this? This is all before social media, right? You could have made a great post, but it's just like, do you remember? I remember a little bit like, we're like, did we buy him a drink or offer to? Something happened. We're
I
like,
think we did. I think we did.
I
But he
think,
literally pushed the ring across the table, and we're like, did he just propose to her? And then
and I can't imagine Walt sitting there saying, we're not going to buy champagne for this. But I remember that, and I just like, oh my gosh. And yeah, we've been like, we would have posted on that. That would have been like a story, but that was wild. That was crazy. Just like a little snippet in time. That had to be 23 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, it was amazing. That was amazing. Hey, but Greg, this is amazing. It brought back so many great memories, and everything we're talking about is so relevant now, especially in the AI world. And to recap, kind of like what we talked about, is how AI is going to disrupt the sales world, and we talked about how it's really going to affect poor salespeople. And the most important things that great salespeople could do these days is build fast trust, many steps, and take people to the ugly pond. Be honest with them, be true, push them to a no, right? And help them build trust and clean up your pipeline. And you're going to do all of this, you share all of this through your on-demand course, which I can't wait for. So where else can our listeners connect with you? What's the best way to connect with you?
You just shoot me an email. I'd love to talk to people. I'm at Greg at the, now I have the Ugly Pond website, theuglypond.com. So go there and you email me. I'm happy to chat. I love it. I love it to hear
When's
about
the course coming out?
It's produced now. It'll be real live, like May 10th, something like that, where I wanted to make it very affordable for people. I'm not doing a bait and switch join things. I just want people to go through this and see it and love it. I'm still not going to go do live workshops and stuff, but if people want to do some customizing and do a lot of it, I love it. That's why I can't retire from it. I just love to talk about it. I love to help people with it. It's particularly love if people have sales problems. I love to brainstorm with them. I just love it. So yeah. And by the way, congrats to you I've just keep in touch, and through COVID and surviving the ups and downs that you have and all of us did going through, particularly in the industry you were in. Just congrats, man, to hang in there and continue to evolve. So that's awesome.
Well, this episode is going to come out right around our 30th anniversary. It's probably, right around June 4th or June 5th. And I just want to say, Greg, you've had a tremendous impact on Learn It. A lot of the things that you talked about back then, we're still implementing now, and there's been a lot of people that come through our doors, and a lot of wonderful people, but you've definitely been one of them. So I was so excited to do this because the impact you've had on me and everybody else that learn it. So for our listeners, what I want to say is if you're somebody who struggles with pipeline, or you lead a team that struggles with pipeline, or you just want to get ahead, because there's still time to get ahead in this AI disruption, do me a favor and send this episode to your friends who are struggling with it. We'll put a link to the Ugly Pawn website on this episode, and to all of Greg's work. And so please check it out. And until next time, everybody, stay curious, keep learning, have a great day. Greg, you're awesome. Thank you, my friend.
But it's a way to think, first of all, to triage decisions, because too often we act like this decision, like where should I move, is